action.
Don't say those two last words too fast, because
Yeah, inaction is
action or faith in action.
in action. Yeah. Come had a word search she's doing for her class. She said she took the 2-word answers and moved them closer together so kids wouldn't look for both of those independently. I think they were names books of the Bible. I can see some kid. Number 2. There's a book named Number 2. So I have no idea, but yeah. Faith in action is a whole different story. I mean, it's kind of what we're talking about on some of this stuff. Faith in action and faith in action. So, well, Steve, you about ready?
Yeah, you're ready.
Oh, okay, live. I won't freak out like Matt does. Matt talks and it's like he freaks out. All right, I play with AI like I always like to do. But anyways, the class is roadblocks and pitfalls. That's what it is. It's roadblocks and pitfalls. So I put that through AI, and believe it or not, it was a lot harder to come up with than expected. So I played with this, and I came up with 3 types, and we'll kind of get to that. I got a picture. So I got 3 hazards there, and what's the difference in them, and how do they complicate a journey? If you came upon, for instance, you came upon a mousetrap in the middle of the path, or you came upon a big deep hole, or you came across a chain across the end of the road. They're all what?
All dangerous.
They're all dangerous. You know, absolutely. They're all dangerous. Probably different levels.
That's when you hit that hole, but you don't know how deep it really is.
No. Oh, yeah. Are you going to? Let's talk about the mousetrap. What kind of? How hurt are you if you don't notice the mousetrap and you step on it? How hurt are you?
The mousetrap,
Yeah.
not too bad.
Not too bad, but that
Bear
mousetrap.
trap, it'd be bad.
Bear trap would be bad. That mousetrap seems to be 4 foot across, so it may be worse than you think. It's a big mousetrap for big mice. But yeah, I mean, typically it's going to hurt, but you're going to get up and go. Bear trap, like Chuck said, you're not going to get up and go.
Yes,
So-
but if it's size proportion, it stops you there.
It stops you right there. You're going to need help to get up and out.
Yeah, somebody's going to have to get that trap off of you to proceed.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're looking at with the class. Somebody's going to need to help you get out of the trap so you can proceed. If the goal is to go down the path, go on the journey to the narrow door, the narrow gate, that trap could end the journey. A mousetrap could end the journey, or it could just be something that we'll get through. How about the hole? What kind of danger is it? Well, Nora already said it depends on how deep the hole is. If it was set up like a tiger trap and had palm fronds across it, you fall in it, it's 12 foot deep. Rob?
The spikes.
Sometimes, here you can obviously see there's a hole and you just walk around. Sometimes you don't see the hole that's there. And I remember one time a friend of mine, we were walking outside his house one day, and I'm talking to him, and then all of a sudden he disappeared. And I looked down, and his dad had dug a hole where the septic tank was, and he had fallen into that hole. Neither one of us saw it. I was fortunate to be on the, outside of it, but he just went right down into the hole. And I think in life, a lot of times we don't see it coming.
Right.
We're headed in this direction thinking we'll be okay, but eventually we won't be okay. And
Yeah, if you don't have your sights on it. It's if you're looking to the sides, or if it's dark, you may not see this. And it may be, like you say, you just disappear in that hole. And it's a bigger hazard. You may twist an ankle up to, you may be gone forever. But I think I'm looking at it as a bigger hazard. What about the chain across the path? How does that affect your journey? Depends on where you're going, doesn't it? But
Well, you don't know what's beyond the chain is the problem.
yes.
Besides, if you go over it, that would hurt.
Out at Black Point Wildlife Drive, there's a chain across a path that you're allowed to walk on. It's got 2 bird blinds back there, and there's some neat stuff to see. But it's got a chain across there to keep the cars out. There's all it's for. There are some places on the wildlife preserve that have chains across them. don't cross the chain. You're not welcome across the chain. You'll meet the federal authorities very quickly if you cross. I swear, and they've got radar watching. As a young fisherman, I was in places I should not have been, and was told not to be there, very sternly. So, yeah, although it's just a chain, you can see the path behind. If it's your chain, your property, keep on going. If it's somebody else's property, it's don't go. The old story about how fast can you get here? The bull can get here in 9
But
seconds.
the chain says, as you were saying, it says, you don't belong here.
Yeah,
That's a big barrier when you say, you don't belong here.
yeah. And with the church, you don't belong here is a huge barrier. Unless you're obstinate, you'll say, okay, you're right, I don't belong here. I got other places to go. Maybe it's another congregation. Maybe it's home. So, yeah. So, I've kind of broke this lesson. I redid some. Chuck didn't finish his lesson. I kind of redid a little bit of it, but I put in some of my own words. But I even classified some of this as mousetrap, pitfall, roadblock, just to look at some of this kind of thing. So, go ahead.
Also, the barrier stops you. The other ones drive you off your path.
Yeah.
Either way, the result is the same.
It can be. They can all result in the same thing. Yeah. I had one AI picture was really nice. The hole was actually off to the side of the path, and it was pretty nice that, if you get off the path, there's the hole. That's like, we'll use one in the middle. But yeah, all this can get in the way entirely. And Chuck started out with the parable of the sower, so I've got his things on here. Matthew 13, 5 through 6. I want to use 2 parts of it. Others fell on a rocky place where they did not have much soil, and they sprang up immediately because they had no depth of soil. But after the sun rose, they were scorched because they had no root. They withered away. And the explanation of that's in Matthew 13, 20 and 21. One sown with seed on rocky places. This is the one who hears the word, immediately receives the joy, has no firm root in himself, is only temporary, and when affliction or persecution occurs because of the word, immediately falls away. So this is the second part of the parable of the sower. And I got Chuck's original questions on there still. What happens to the ones that were sown in rocky places, or what happens to the plants, I guess, because really we're the soil, but at the same time we're the seed too. So what happens to the seed that's sown in rocky places? It doesn't gather much root. It doesn't get a firm root. It seems to be only temporary. I think the key is that it says has no firm root in himself. When affliction or persecution occurs because of the word, it falls away. It dies. And we also looked at
We would call those very, very new Christians.
typically very new Christians.
And they can be, somebody can, they could do something stupid and they go, I'm done.
Yeah, they could do something stupid and be done. Today, this week's example, the PGA tournament, Scotty Scheffler. Did you see that on the news? He was arrested for, I would say, a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. He was arrested, charged with 4 counts. He came back and shot 5 under par that day. I wouldn't have played. I mean, his composure of what he could do, his mental composure that he had, he was rooted enough in it, and it was not the Bible, and it's not Christianity. He was rooted enough that he came back and did a great job. The kid that won the amateur tournament probably couldn't have done that. Didn't have that depth. So it's the same kind of thing as we apply it to us. So another part of the parable of the sower, Matthew 13:7. Others fell among the thorns, and the thorns came up and choked them out. That's explained in verse 22. And the one sown with seed among the thorns, this is the one who hears the word, and the anxiety of the world, and the deceitfulness of the world, wealth choke the world. Choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful. There you go. I get it all choked out there one way or another. Word, world, English is terrible. So what happens to the people sown among the thorns? They get choked out by what?
More than anything else, external influences.
External influences, yeah. And I guess my story kind of works more towards this. The other one seems to be more internal and this one seems to be more external. They work together sometimes too, though. But yeah, so that's really the key to that. And we're kind of looking at the second and third plantings. No firm root in himself, but only temporary affliction or persecution occurs because the word immediately falls away, or anxiety of the world and deceitfulness of wealth. And why aren't we discussing the first or fourth planting? Why aren't we discussing the seed that was sown on the road or the seed on the fertile ground? It just doesn't apply when we're looking at pitfalls and roadblocks. One just flat out doesn't succeed at all, and the other one goes on, flourishes. Insensitivity. This is what we're talking about. I was going to bring up Leanne Rimes' song, but it was about something entirely different. So, all right, Chuck had this example last week. Like I said, I kept some of this with different words. But at 14 years old, about 2 months after my mom died from cancer, the nun asked me to come up in front of the class to explain to them what it felt like to see and touch my mom after she died. I immediately left class to cry in the bathroom stall. No one checked on me to see if I was okay. I never went back. So what hazard did this teenager first encounter? There's two hazards, but what's the first hazard? Loss of a mother. Okay. Taylor was telling me that with foster kids, because they foster, there's a 10-point scale as they evaluate foster kids, and one of the things is loss of a parent as a teenager. So that's one of the, you get that, you check that box, and it's a possible trouble type rating, but that's a box that you can check. Not necessarily trouble, but just, the psychiatric effects of losing a parent. So is this a roadblock, a pitfall, or a mousetrap? And I asked this 20 times through this night, today. Having a parent pass away as a teenager is a roadblock, pitfall, or is it a mousetrap? I would say typically it's a pitfall, and you didn't see it coming. It's not going to hurt a little bit. It's going to hurt a lot. It's going to hurt a lot, and it could prevent. They all can prevent the journey at some point, but yeah, it's going to hurt a lot. What kind of insensitive hazard happened later? So after the parent died, there was an insensitive hazard from an outside source.
It's almost two-part. First part was ask them to do something without really knowing the depth of grief they were in. It was a bad idea. That was first.
Yeah.
The second part was
Oh yeah. Then the not
nobody
checking on them.
followed up.
Yeah, that's.
Nobody cared.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. There's two parts to that. The first part being the insensitive part of asking about it, not knowing their grief, and then nobody cared when they ran away and hid in the bathroom stall. So it's kind of like I think I asked the same question, but again, it should be. I mean, at this level, it's another pitfall that you're stuck in a hole, but then
Somebody's filling the hole up.
somebody's filling the hole up, so it becomes a roadblock. Your journey is done. No one checked on them. They never went back. It becomes a total roadblock at that point. It's a weird question. What did it feel like to see and touch your mom after she died? That's a
Stupid question. It's not strange. It's stupid.
yeah. Anybody here ever touch somebody dead?
Yeah. My dad
Your dad
and my husband.
and your husband? I won't ask you about that. I know Camille's a social worker. She did hospice, and when she got trained, the lady said we clean after they die, and they, as a social worker, not as a nurse, they clean the bodies so the families can see them. Some families like to call everybody in.
They did a beautiful job on my husband when they cleaned him up.
That's a strange thing that I don't think I could do, but I also don't want to know too many details about that.
No, but you got to give them gratitude for what they do.
Yeah, and some people are different. Some people, Camille touches bodies at funerals. So, Rob?
I've had that experience many times. I've been with people when they passed away. That might get, well,
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can't help but know that's waiting for you someday. You're gonna be in that spot where you're gonna pass. It'd be nice to have somebody there to hold your hand
Right.
and touching it, you know, I mean, in the Old Testament, if you touched a dead body, there was a whole thing you had to go through to get clean again. But it shouldn't be something that we're afraid of. You know, we're all mortal and I
Yeah.
think that helps.
I agree with that.
I would add to that the experience as an adult and the experience as a 14-year-old are,
Yeah.
really different.
It compounds that a lot right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that way. When my sister passed away, my kids and her son were all together. But it's a little closure to that too. But it's traumatic, but to stand in front of someone and ask what it felt like and stuff. Most people here know that I found a young woman that was in my Bible class. I found her dead. But the people who immediately came and checked on me was Susan's sister, who's a paramedic, and Mike Robbins, who's a fireman, who've been through the trauma, and they both, they know the trauma of it, and they both checked on me and said, "Let me know," So, Rob?
I was gonna say what she was talking about when I was a young man. You know, before I was even a teenager, I'd go with my father every summer to work, and we were working on this county nursing home one time, and my dad sent me to go get something, and I opened up this door, and there was maybe 7 to 9 women in that room, all crying and in pain and everything, and I opened that door up as a little kid, and I looked at it. That had a big effect on me.
Oh.
I mean, that was a lot different than walking into one today.
Yeah. So how should this have been handled? How should this have been handled? Like Chuck said, the questions are dumb because you don't know the person's grief. You do know the person's grief. They're 14 years old and they lost a parent. It's
14-year-old girl.
yeah. And the questions, you're in an anatomy and physiology class or you're learning, something like that, it might have been a relevant question. Now, I'm assuming this is a high school class. Questions,
Why would that come up in a class? But
It's the kind of thing where you ought to go, okay, I'd like you to do this, but are you ready to do it yet?
right.
One-on-one, show some compassion, show some empathy, or at least sympathy. You may not have any empathy because you've never lost anybody, but at least some sympathy, and try and understand the person's feelings. If you're asking them to do something like this, first of all, it's 14-year-old get up in front of the class and talk. It's probably going to be a shock anyhow.
Yeah.
So you could have done that and probably diffuse the whole situation.
Yeah. Just use it, just find it out. Take time. All right. My father was diagnosed with lung cancer when I was 17. After his death, I was having a hard time understanding why God would let this happen. When I asked my pastor, he told me that I didn't have enough faith. Then, when I told someone else about this, I was called a liar. I was pretty much shunned. This is, again, you're right, it's a 3-part thing. What hazard did the teenager first encounter? Yeah, death. A parent had cancer and death. That was the first hazard. Roadfall, pitfall, roadblock, I'll never get this right. Roadblock, pitfall, mousetrap is a little thing, a big thing. It doesn't have to be a roadblock, but it's, again, major, a pitfall, something that could do some serious damage.
pitfall at this point.
It's a pitfall at this point.
Become a barrier.
It becomes a roadblock, yeah. What insensitive hazard happened later? They go to somebody they try to get through the pain of grief, the grief counseling. They go to someone who should, they trust. It says my pastor, someone they trust, someone who they would look at for guidance to get through this, to get out of that pitfall. But what were they told?
Put it metaphorically, as he
Had his hands on the edge so he could pull out. He stepped on his fingers.
Yeah. Yes. He had his hands on the edge to pull out, stepped on his fingers. You don't have enough faith to get out of this hole. You're stuck there, buddy.
It's not an unusual question. People are going to ask this kind of a question.
Right. It's
Gave him I don't know, a cliche answer.
yes, it's very cliche. I find that problem sometimes. You need Jesus, and what? You know, that's for a lot of people in this life. They need it. There's some and to that. You know. Yeah, they need it through this. Hospice has grief counselors. One for families, different people handle things different ways. I also know that Hospice of St. Francis has a children's program, and they have once a year, and they have like a camp for kids who've lost parents and stuff. It's a different level, but there's one employee that's their big job. I mean, they'll hire a grief counselor, so it's a serious thing. When I was in 5th grade, a girl in my class, riding her bicycle, got hit by a car, coma, and died. We didn't learn anything the rest of the year, or at least the way I remember it. We didn't learn anything the rest of the year. And most of us at that age had not even lost grandparents. So I don't remember us learning anything. But today, when you see how things are handled differently, they send in grief counselors to the classrooms and stuff to try to help kids and stuff through this kind of thing. Things are handled differently. So, yeah, getting told you don't have enough faith, and then when you tell somebody else that the pastor told you don't have enough faith, then you're called a liar. That's even a third level of that. Roadblock, I'll never get this right, Chuck. Roadblock, pitfall, mousetrap. Yeah, good luck. I'll put a picture up next time. It's the end of your journey at this point. It's a brick wall. Yeah, you had a problem that was escalated and then even sealed up. It's done.
You know, the hypocrisy was when he denied it, and then everybody, said, "Oh, you're a terrible person for doing that." It's like, is there a sensitive person in the group?
Just the victim. The victim's the only sensitive one in there.
That's a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah.
It's a liar.
Well, I find that the nun and the pastor were not people who should have been helping anybody.
No, they're not in the right job. It's,
That's just
yeah.
abuse.
And you see that kind of stuff, it's out there. So let's look at biblical version. We'll get some other stories too, but we'll look at the Bible of how things could have been handled better, how Jesus handled things. John 11:30-34. If you know the story at this point, Lazarus passed away. Lazarus is a friend of Jesus. So John 11:30-34. Now Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still at the place where Martha met him. When the Jews who were with him in the house and were consoling him, when they saw that Mary had gotten up quickly and left, they followed her, thinking that she was only going to the tomb to weep there. So when Mary came to the place where Jesus was, she saw him, and fell at his feet, saying to him, "Lord, if you had been there, my brother would not have died." Therefore, when Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and was troubled, and he said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus wept. What hazard did Mary and Martha encounter?
The fact that Jesus didn't make it there in time to
Save your brother.
Yeah, it kind of compounds it, doesn't it? Their brother died. They asked Jesus to come. He didn't come. He's just sick. So yeah, you're right. It compounds this. I mean, it started out as just maybe a mousetrap. He's sick, and it gets worse, and he's bad sick. And they call Jesus. He don't come. It's definitely a pitfall type thing. It's a stopping place. How deeply rooted was the faith of Mary and Martha? Some of that story. We know this. How deep is their faith?
Well, it's enough for them to know that if Jesus would have came, he would have.
Deep enough to call him, knowing he can make a difference. Deep enough for us that he didn't come and he died. you definitely could have made a difference. So it's deep enough that way. So this is good. This is kind of like, I don't know, it's not great, but it's at thorn level or above. I mean, it's not just the shallow root, which they're done. And actually, as we know, they're not done. Rob?
Sometimes, this story lays out a situation, but it's kind of like when Jesus is asleep in a boat and the waves are crashing around and everybody's wondering, how can you just sleep through all this storm? Jesus understands he has the power over life and death. He can actually change the situation, even if he's not there. Do they have enough confidence that he can do that? In the boat, they didn't. And in this situation, they didn't see it either. And a lot of times that happened as Jesus was going through life, that, they're still learning. I mean, this was before he died. This was before he was raised. This is before he ascended. And so they're in that mystery stage. I was doing I got down a rabbit hole on the mystery of Christ, and how all the way through the Bible, this mystery is laid out, and you keep looking, and here it is again, and here it is again, and everything's pointing to this direction, and then after he's raised and ascended and established, it's pointing the other direction. So anyway, that's
good. Yeah.
And they've accepted that he's just dead. At this particular point,
They're accepting.
because he's been dead and he's been in the tomb for a while.
Yeah, you're right. They're accepted. He's just dead. That's just it. Yeah, you can cry here, you can cry there. He's just dead. So why did Jesus come? Like Chuck said, he's already dead. He's already in a cave. Why did he come?
I think he knew what he was going to do. But you can see the compassion he has for him. He could have said, hey, don't worry about it. I got this handled.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He was moved with passion. And that's a Bible question is, what's the shortest verse in the Bible?
Where's the verse right there? 35. Yeah. You see his compassion. Yeah, he may have known what he was doing, but it's definitely there compassion for his friend and the sisters. Clive?
I think Jesus, he knew exactly what he was going to do. And that's why he believed. And
Shows his power.
to show his power. You see, as it asks the faith of Mary and Martha, they had faith. They had a lot of faith. But sometimes we do not know how powerful God is. And so our faith is limited. So, she had enough faith, but not in the sense that after being dead for 4 days, let us just wait on the general resurrection.
Right, yeah.
Jesus had more power than that.
There's more powers in that? Yeah. Margaret?
And I don't know the timeline, but as we're talking about this, what came to mind is when Jesus raised the daughter of
Centurion's daughter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, looking at this particular passage, Mary and Martha, they felt that Jesus could heal Lazarus before he died.
Mm-hmm.
But now that he's dead, they don't. And I just wondered did they know about him raising the daughter, and would their reaction have been different? Like, hey, you're here, it's still possible?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I know Lazarus was his friend, and so they knew him very, very well. And if anybody had faith that he could raise somebody 4 days dead, they would probably have been the people. They knew the gall. I don't know.
I know he had raised people from the dead before, but I don't know if Mary and Martha were aware of it.
Yeah.
He had the woman who was carrying her son, and the son was dead, and she brought the son back.
The son of Boaz. But there's also people he didn't. They died. So, yeah, the situation there. Jesus set traps like we saw in the examples. Did he say, you don't have enough faith?
Get over it.
Get over it. What did it feel like to touch him? He didn't ask. I mean, those questions, like we said, they're dominant and sensitive in those examples.
Where's his stuff? Did he leave stuff?
Yeah, it's getting good stuff that maybe I could have. Get leftover candy. He didn't ask questions like that, right? I mean, we're human and we do dumb stuff. That's just, he doesn't set traps like that. And this is how you can take that lesson in there. And what did Jesus do to help put Mary and Martha back on the right track after this pitfall, after being in a hole? How does he get them back on the path?
First of all, he wept with him.
He wept with them.
With him.
You're right, first of all, because I know later he brings them back to life. And that's not on the slide, but yeah. But first of all, he weeps with them. He feels, he's sympathetic, empathetic, really. He's there with them. Take me to his body. Take me with you. Let me feel your pain. Or, sometimes it's the centurions and some of those people, he may not have a connection. It may have been different, but this one, let me be there. Rob?
I think, too, to the Jewish audience, they have a different perception than what we would have. In Isaiah chapter 6, when we're talking about how the people were blind, I remember reading Isaiah 6 and said, whoa, he's my lips are, I'm a sinner. And then the seraphim takes the hot coal, he puts it on his mouth and says, you're clean. Now go out and preach to Israel and tell them they're all losers and sinners. And well, how long am I supposed to do this? Until the cities are desolate. So Jesus comes on the scene and he's talking about those same people. And the Pharisees and Sadducees, they didn't hear, they didn't see. And he compares it, they quote that same passage and apply it. And so when the Jews were hearing that, we have to bear in mind what came with that verse. It was judgment. There's a judgment coming, and believe in me, because what's better or what's more complicated, forgiving sin or healing someone? Jesus asked that question.
Yeah.
Well, immediately, if he's going to forgive sin, he must be God, and let's kill him.
Yeah. Yeah, that comes, I know here, that's part of the story. They see him raise Lazarus from the dead, and let's kill him. Matthew 5, 1 through 5, now the Beatitudes. Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. He opened his mouth and began to teach them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, there's the kingdom of God, heaven. Verse 4, Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the gentle, for they will inherit the earth. What are the lifetime odds of losing someone you love? It's 100%. Unless you don't love anybody. Unless you don't love anybody and there's some unlovable people out there. If you love somebody, you are guaranteed to lose someone you love in your life unless you have a very short life. Like I said, I told about the girl in my fifth grade class. She probably hadn't lost anyone she loved at that point. So, Dean Miller, know Dean Miller? Some people may not. Dean Miller, we had him here 4 years ago. He does a seminar called Widowhood Workshop. It's a fantastic seminar. If you can ever catch him somewhere doing it, it's for widows and widowers, but his part of his objective is appreciate your marriage while you have it. He does a fantastic job. We had his workshop just before my sister passed away. It helped me even through that, from what I heard. Dean's a funny guy. He's a great guy to meet if you ever get to. But anyways, he's got a great ministry if you ever need it. I recommend going to where he's at. One of his Dean Millerisms, good marriages end with death. He says stuff that's right off the cuff is almost dumb, but it's right. But good marriages end in death. So that's a terrible thing to have to look forward to, but it is. That's how good marriages end. Another one of his things that leaves half of us as widows and widowers. So if you're in a marriage and it goes till death, you will be a widow, or one of you will be a widow or a widower. Those are some staggering odds that most of us have never faced with that. So we're going to mourn. Is that a roadfall? I told you, I'll never get this. Roadblock, pitfall, mousetrap. I'm going to just Losing a spouse, how much is that going to hurt? How much is it going to affect your journey?
It's a mousetrap. That's a trap.
It's a trap.
Let's stop.
For what?
It's,
A
it's,
roadblock, shouldn't be a roadblock.
shouldn't be a roadblock. A faithful marriage, a marriage is built on faith, it can still go on. And I see it. Edith and Sherry Ann, both lost husbands a week or so apart. You see them sit together. Man, there's the other one, Elvie and Arliss, lost husbands on the same day. They became tight friends. Their faith are intertwined. Yeah, you can get through it. You can get through it. And that's, I know some of these people, as they get closer, they're ready. They've lived a lifetime for that, so that's part of it. Rob?
Sorry to keep tossing, but I think Jesus sets everything on its head. He turns everything upside down. Normally you think, who are the best and the most precious people in the world? Well, they're the richest. And who's the smartest? The richest. Who are the people that, you turn to when you need help? Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, go down the list. All these people, they must be so smart and so much better than anybody else. And they show with their arrogance that they're not poor in spirit. Their humility doesn't come shining through. And so Jesus is saying that those people that are depending on me, I take care of the sparrows, I take care of the plants, I sit in the rain, all these, you depend on me, I'll give you comfort, I'll give you that strength to get through it, but you have to depend on me,
Right.
and don't depend on yourself.
Don't depend on yourself.
Or depend on somebody like me. Don't put your confidence in me, put it in God.
There's a lot of ways we can help with this morning, which, like you said, it all depends on God. That's really where that comfort and peace is actually really going to come from.
We got an opportunity with Linda.
We have an opportunity right now. Linda Spillman, with Bob passing away this past week. His funeral is on Tuesday at Cape Canaveral National Cemetery. And I know one of the things we do here, crazy as it is, we do funerals as well. But yeah, we'll have a fellowship meal back here, and there'll be too much food. There'll be too much food, and there'll be some people that probably didn't really even know Bob Spillman very well. And it's a show of love that we do. We got an opportunity with that, and that to get us back on track. Rely on someone. Sometimes it's somebody who's been there before. Somebody has that faith in God's comfort and His peace. Another story. I gave up on the notion of being a Christian when a Christian school defended a kid who sexually harassed and physically assaulted me for 4 months. He told me it was my fault. Most of the teachers turned against me, told me I was no longer welcomed at the school. Christ told us to defend the weak and the oppressed, give to those who got down on their luck, fight back when we saw something wrong and unjust. I choose to be a Christ follower, not a Christian. What hazard did this person first encounter? Sexual harassment
In a Christian school.
in a Christian school. Yeah, in a place where
Should have been safe.
strictly forbidden. Yes, having 2 kids at a Christian college. I like to think it's safe there. There's stuff there that's unfortunately. Yeah, I'd like to think they're safe. I also know the odds.
When I read this one, I said, okay, we've got one side of the story.
You got one side of the story. Yeah.
I'm guessing it was her, but pretty sure it was.
Yeah, probably a her. Roadblock, pitfall, mousetrap? Depends. It's worse than a mousetrap.
It's a roadblock.
It's probably a roadblock. It's going to take a lot to move that roadblock. It gets to be that way, definitely. When they accuse her, it's all your fault. So. Let's go on to Philippians 2. Look at what Jesus does in a similar situation. Actually, Chuck's got that one, but I'm gonna move on to the next one. Let's stay. Therefore, if there's any encouragement in Christ, if any consolation of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any affection and compassion, make my joy complete by being of the same mind, maintaining the same love, united in spirit, intent on one purpose. Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility consider one another as more important than yourselves. Don't merely look out for your own personal interests, but out for the interests of others. Have this attitude in yourselves, which is also in Jesus. And if you're looking at an administrator, they might want to protect their job. They might have wanted to protect the reputation of the school, some of the stuff that it's, rather than handling a problem,
Might have been the kid was the son of one of
Those teachers
Yeah.
in school.
Yeah, it could have been a lot of possibilities, but probably some kind of personal interest that affected that. I put in the story in Luke 7. Now one of the Pharisees was, Luke 7, 36 through 39. Now one of the Pharisees was asking him to eat with him, and he entered the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. Behold, there was a woman in the city who was a sinner. Anyways, you know this story, I think. Anyways, Jesus is there. A lady comes, 38, and standing behind him at his feet, crying. She began to wet his feet in her tears. She keeps wiping her hair, wiping them with the hair of her head, and kissing his feet and anointing with perfume. Now when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, saying, if this man were a prophet, he would know who and what sort of person this woman is who is touching him, that she's a sinner. So this woman commonly is told is she's probably a prostitute. So what hazard put her in that, set her up to be that sort of a person? Trauma of some sort.
something happened where maybe the only source of her income
Was that. She may have chose to do that. It may have been, she was sold into it. Who knows?
Who knows? But it's something that's blocking. She's reaching up out of the pit, is where she's at, and the Pharisee's trying to block her, put a roadblock up there. It's really what you see here. Jesus says, he tells the parable about the moneylender with two debtors, and the Pharisee says, the one who owed the most is the one who has the most great, love him more. He gives the Pharisee a chance, even with his own faith, with a lesson there. Jesus doesn't set trap for the woman. He forgives her sins. Your faith has saved you. Go in peace. He's given her an opportunity. He's given the Pharisee an opportunity. He didn't do it free, but he did that. He sets them up for success, to dig out of the holes they're both in, to go down the path. And you got one more story there if you want to pick up with that next week, Chuck.
next week, yeah.
Okay. I think I got something here that, anyways. That's the direction I went with. Some things in life are mousetraps, some things are pitfalls, some things will block your path entirely. Handled correctly, you can keep going down the path. Handled incorrectly, they all become roadblocks. So that's our role, is just don't block somebody's path to the narrow gate. Don't block them the path to Christ. So, all right, thank you all.